Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Playmore69 here, aka Michael, and this is the All in All Podcast, episode 14. Welcome back to the show, everyone. In this episode today, I will be taking a political compass test. Not the political compass test, but a political compass test. This is the one I will be taking, the Sapply Values political compass test. I will leave the link in the description down below if you would like to take it as well, but basically I will explain a little bit about the political compass test before I start. But if you already know what the political compass test is, then you can skip ahead and probably watch me take it then. But regardless, I will explain a little bit here. So basically, the political compass is divided into 4 quadrants here. This is the actual compass. It's just this grid. So we have authoritarian here at the top. These two are authoritarian. These two are libertarian. This is the left and this is the right. So if you think about this, this would be the conservative and this would be the liberal side. So basically, if you get in this quadrant, you would be authoritarian right. If you get here, you would be liberal or libertarian right. If you get here, you would be libertarian left, and you would get here, you would get authoritarian left. So those are really the 4 quadrants. It's not the best test out there for your politics. There's obviously a lot better tests out there to take, and I probably will take them in the future, obviously. But for now, I wanted to start off and really just do the political compass test because I know that it's probably the most popular test to take. And this is the one I'm really talking about, where it's literally just the political compass test. And the reason I'm not taking this test is it is very skewed. So it's been on the internet since 2001, and it's a very skewed test in a way where it basically skews libertarian. So basically, if you're kind of a moderate, you might be slightly authoritarian. You're still going to wind up pretty much in libertarian. Also, it skews a little left from what I've seen from the questions. So basically, as long as you're not like a radical, like right person or conservative person, you would probably wound up in the libertarian left. So you'd probably wound up in this quadrant. And that's where the majority of people really wind up. And if you've only taken one political test in your life, you probably think you're a libertarian left type of person if you're a moderate. And the reason I say that is this is a better representation of the kind of political compass test. This was made by Reddit user Stereo Sparrow or Sorrow, and just wanted to give him credit for this image. Basically, this image more or less describes the political compass, but it describes it better where you have centrist, you have the just left as liberal, right as conservative, and then you have the 4 quadrants here, and you also have authoritarian center, and you also have libertarian center. So this basically just kind of explains it a little bit better than just looking at these 4 quadrants here. And at least from what I've heard from this test is that it is quite neutral and it gives a lot better of a result than this political compass test that I have taken actually many times to kind of see if I can get, a different score. But it seems I really wind up right around here, this libertarian left, and most people do. So I'm not the only one. I know I'm on the left, but I really don't know how far I am on the left. At least for taking this original political compass test, actually taking it seriously, I wind up right around here. So basically kind of like in the middle of the quadrant of the libertarian left. I don't know if I'm really that libertarian. I would kind of agree that I'm that left. So basically, if you were looking more at this chart, I would basically be definitely considered a liberal, but I would be basically a hard libertarian left. And that's according to this political compass test. I mean, if anyone wants to watch me take it, I would definitely do an episode on it. But regardless, this test is supposed to be a lot more just neutral on the fact. So there's 46 questions, just like the normal political compass test, the original one. And some of the questions were rewritten a little bit, and I think a couple were swapped out, but the majority of questions still stay the same, but it should give a better result. At least my predictions is I know I should end up on the left. Now, for how far I end up on the left, I have no idea, and I don't think I'll wind up pretty authoritarian or pretty libertarian. I think I'm going to wind up somewhere on the line. At least if going off this image, I think I'm going to wind up right around here, I would say. But anyways, time to actually get into the test. I'll actually full screen my screen here. Okay, so it's saying for my presented statements, click each button. Okay. I guess I'll go unshuffled because I haven't actually taken the test before. So I kind of just want to go in order. But if I take it again, I will go shuffled. So for now, I'm just going to go unshuffled. Okay, it looks like we are in the test, and let's go. 46 questions. All right. Freedom of business is the best practical way a society can prosper. There might be a little bit of some long pauses during this podcast because it might be me thinking, but I will try to think out loud with some thoughts, obviously. So freedom of business is important, obviously. I think that businesses should have a good amount of freedom when it comes to what they want to sell, but there has to be a limit on it because you can't have absolute freedom of business like anarch capitalism. Like, this is basically like the lib right question. Like, do you find it okay for people to sell meth on the street? And it's like, to that I have a little bit of like, no, there has to be a little bit like, I definitely think that businesses should have a lot of freedom, but it's like, I think the freedom should be a little bit limited because there can definitely be a lot of bad things that businesses can make off of. So I'm just going to go with a soft disagree, not strongly disagree. I'll just go with a soft disagree. Okay. Charity is a better way of helping those in need than social welfare. So charity is obviously really good, but that relies on people's generosity. And I don't know, like, are people just that generous? I honestly think social welfare is a lot better because at least it spreads out the wealth to people who need it. Wow, and it's also more consistent. So it's like with charity, people might be really generous one part of the year. Like, for instance, Christmas just happened, so people were probably really generous to charities. But I don't think that people are going to be that generous in like July of the middle of the year or something. But like, I think social welfare is probably better. So I'm gonna go with a strongly disagree on this. Wages are always fair as employers know best what a worker's labor is worth. Yeah, I definitely disagree with this. Because if employees actually got paid fair wages, then people would actually be like happy with their work. I mean, obviously there would be those outliers, but to me this makes no sense. Yeah, I think the employers do know or do have a sense of how much their labor is really worth, but the wages are not always fair. Like, a lot of times in the United States, especially, I'm just speaking off United States experience because that's where I'm from. They're not fair for a lot of people. A lot of people do not get paid what they should get paid. I'm kind of speaking from experience here. You're worth a lot more than you think to a company, but they're not going to pay you anywhere near what they should be getting or what you should be getting paid because it affects their bottom line. So, strongly disagree on that. It is human nature to be greedy. I would agree with this to an extent. I wouldn't strongly agree, but I probably would agree with this just based on the sole fact that, I think we're kind of like physiologically tuned in a way, or psychologically tuned in a way, to where we're supposed to care about our own needs. So I think that human nature, it is to be greedy for your own basic needs, like eating, sleeping, taking care of yourself. Like, I think that people are greedy for their own basic needs, but I think if you already have your basic needs met, obviously there are a lot of people that will continue the greed, but there are some people that will become content as long as their basic needs are met. So that's why I'm only going to go with agree on this, because I don't know to what extent this question is really asking, but I will go agree. Exploitation is an outdated term as struggles of 1800s capitalism don't exist anymore. Well, I really don't agree with this. I would probably strongly disagree. A lot of exploitation of workers still goes on to this day, and we just see it on the news now. Now, are conditions better today than they were in the 1800s? Probably. We actually have like lights and air conditioning. We have basic things. But for a lot of people, like working in factories or assembly lines, for those people who still have those type jobs, a lot of people from the 1800s, it would basically be the same thing you're doing now, except you might have an air conditioner now and you might actually have like fluorescent lights. Like that might be the only difference. But it definitely still happens in today. So I would strongly disagree. Communism is an ideal that can never work in practice. Okay, well, true communism has never been practiced, so let's just get that out of the way. Honestly, my take on communism is that I think it can work in a small environment. So basically, what I mean by that is, like, let's say you had a very small group of people in a very small community, and they shared everything they had, and everything was used accordingly. I think it could work then, like, I don't want to speak from experience here, but it's like, well, I'll just give you an example. Like, for instance, if someone was, like, let's say living on like land with a family, okay, and they had a lot of family there, and they had a lot of different things there from different family members, and you could borrow what you needed to get what work you needed to get done on the land. I think it could work in that situation. So I will say disagree, because, again, communism is a very new thing in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to just say disagree, because it might actually work in some cases, but that's why I'll go with a disagree here. Taxation of the wealthy is a bad idea. Society would be better off without it. Strongly disagree. Taxation of the wealthy is a good thing, because if the wealthy keep getting wealthier, then the poor will keep getting poorer. So yeah, that I just really don't get this question, but okay. Yeah, strongly disagree. The harder you work, the more you progress up the social ladder. I would disagree with this. It was actually quite good for this question too. We got it because in my last podcast, I reacted to Jubilee's rich versus poor. And I think there's a lot of talk around like being poor in America, obviously through that episode. And the best thing that I can say to people is that some people are born into certain situations where they can work extremely hard every single day, and never work themselves out of poverty. So I would say the harder you work, the more you progress up the social ladder. I would say disagree, not strongly disagree, because I think that you do have a lot of control over your own destiny. But at the same time, you could be born into a situation to where you cannot get your way out of it. There's a lot of barriers put in place for people to kind of not fight their way out. So I would go with a disagree here. Organizations and corporations cannot be trusted and need to be regulated by the government. Strongly disagree here, or I mean, strongly agree here. Yeah, obviously, organizations and corporations need to be regulated. Yeah, I would say strongly agree. A government that provides for everyone is an inherently good idea. I mean, just looking at it from an idea standpoint, yes, it's a good idea. I don't think you can disagree with that. And just because it's an idea, I'll just put strongly agree, because it is just an idea. I mean, that this sounds good fundamentally. I'll just strongly agree. The current welfare system should be expanded to further combat inequality. What inequality are we talking about? This I hate when they ask these questions like this, because it's like, what do you mean? Do you mean race inequality? Do you mean gender inequality? Do you mean ethnicity inequality? Like, what do you mean? Wealth inequality? I mean, I would definitely agree with this, but would I strongly agree? I mean, I guess I really don't know, because I'm kind of stuck in a situation with, like, what do they mean by inequality? I'm guessing they mean wealth. I guess I'll say strongly agree with this one. I really don't know what they mean though, but I'll put strongly agree. Land should not be a commodity to be bought and sold. I would strongly disagree with this one. I think that land can be a commodity that's bought and sold. At least in the United States it is. Now, is it the best thing to be bought and sold? It seems very like you gain a lot of power when you have land, but at least for the United States, it's something that we've done ever since the creation of this country. So I would say, yeah, it should be a commodity that's bought and sold. So I would strongly disagree. All industries and banks should be nationalized. I would strongly disagree with this. I think we do still need the private sector. If it said some, I would agree, but it says all, so I can't get behind that. So I would say strongly disagree. Class is the primary division of society. Strongly agree. I grew up very poor, and I didn't grow up around a lot of people my own race. I am white, and I did not grow up around a lot of white people, but I still feel connected to the group of people I grew up around, which was mainly Hispanic. So class is definitely a primary division of society. I don't think race is. I really think it's class. Economic inequality is too high in the world. I honestly don't know why anyone would not put strongly agree. I can't think of any instances would it not be. It's like there's, I think, 100 people or 400 people in the world that hold like 50% of the wealth. So, I don't know how much higher it can get, but yeah, strongly agree. Sometimes it is right that the government may spy on its citizens to combat extremists and terrorists. I mean, if this is for a case of public safety, I would definitely agree. And the reason, and I think that I would put strongly agree, is because it only says sometimes. If it said all the time, all the time spying on us just because there might be a threat out there, then I would only put agree. But since it only says sometimes, I'd put strongly agree, because what I basically take away from this question is that when it says sometimes, is that in extreme instances or in instances that they do have a threat, then they could spy on us. I would strongly agree. Authority figures, if morally correct, are a good thing for society. I would strongly agree with this. If people are morally correct, I think that them being authority figures is a good thing for society. Yeah. Strength is necessary for any government to succeed. This is a tough one. Honestly, I would put disagree. And the reason I go for disagree is that it says any government. I do think there are governments out there that can succeed without strength. Now, do I think that for most governments? No, I think most governments do need strength in order to succeed. But the fact that it says any government, I would say disagree. Only the government can fairly and effectively regulate organizations. I would disagree with this. Other organizations and other companies could regulate editors or just partnering organizations or something like that, so I would disagree with this. Society requires structure and bureaucracy in order to function. This is quite a tough one. At least in my society, I would say yeah. But I think from my understanding of society, it's more about culture. Is culture structure though? No, culture doesn't have to be structure and it doesn't have to be bureaucracy. So, I mean, if it's asking for my society, yeah, both of these things are required in order for it to function. But some societies, no, I don't think it is. I mean, this is really the authoritarian question right here. It's like, are you more authoritarian than you are libertarian? I don't know, at least in my society, yeah, I would definitely. This is quite a tough one. Well, I will put disagree, and the only reason I put disagree is that there are probably some societies out there that don't require structure and bureaucracy in order to function. You know, they can still function based on just their culture. I mean, see, that's the thing I'm struggling with. Like, does culture mean structure? Because society is really the culture of the people. Well, I guess the culture of the people don't have to be structure. Okay, I'm going to go disagree on this. Mandatory IDs should be used to ensure public safety. I don't think mandatory IDs can ensure public safety. I mean, maybe if the government like knows who you are immediately. So I guess kind of, but like I don't think it should be used to ensure public safety. I would go disagree with that. In times of crisis, safety becomes more important than civil liberties. I would strongly agree. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. I would strongly disagree with this. Basically, my take with this is that you can be doing nothing wrong, but you could be a little bit different than the others. And if the government is spying on everyone and you're a little bit different, then they could, maybe put a flag on your head or, put you on a list somewhere. So I'd strongly disagree with this. The government should be less involved in day-to-day lives of its citizens. I would strongly agree with this. Without democracy, society is nothing. Again, this is the authoritarian versus libertarian question. I think society is more about culture. So I would disagree with this. Soft disagree, but that's just from what I know about society, it's the culture of the people. Jury nullification should be legal. Strongly agree with this. The smaller the government, the freer the people. In principle, yes. I'm trying to think if I would agree or strongly agree. I guess I would strongly agree. The smaller the government, the freer the people. That's true. I'm only agreeing with this in principle. And by the way, free, which is freedom, does not mean the people are better. You just have more freedoms. But yeah, I would strongly agree. The government should at most provide emergency services and law enforcement. Strongly disagree. Think they should provide a lot more than that. The police were not created to protect the people, but to uphold the status quo by force. I don't think the police were originally created to just uphold a status quo. I think they were like literally created so to protect the people. So I would disagree with this. Maybe even strongly disagree. Yeah, I would strongly disagree. I really think police were created, not just in the United States, but also in like, other countries to protect the people. So I agree with this. State schools are a bad influence because our state shouldn't be influencing our children. So is this opposed to a national school system? Because a school system in itself is going to be influencing people or kids no matter what. And the state schools aren't going to be much better. I mean, if you have a nationalized school system, it's going to skew the entire, let's just say United States, so American history in one way. And if you are just at the state school system, then it would skew their state history in one way. And it would skew everything, according to that state. So I don't know if state schools are a bad idea. I think I would disagree that they're a bad idea because I think that both could be good ideas if implemented correctly. So I guess I would disagree with this. Two consenting individuals should be able to do whatever they want with each other, even if it makes me uncomfortable. Strongly agree. Don't care what two people do consensually. Doesn't have any effect on me. An individual's body is their own property, and they should be able to do whatever they desire with it, or desire to it. I would agree. I think the only reason I wouldn't strongly agree is you have to think of people who have, like, let's say mental illnesses that want to chop off their own arms and stuff. I don't think we should go full libertarian and say like, hey, yeah, you could chop off your own arm. But if people want to get like tattoos and like piercings on their body, they can do that. So I would agree. The only reason I wouldn't strongly agree is because I think that's encompassing like, the full libertarian argument of like, oh yeah, if someone wants to blow their brains out, they could just blow their brains out. It's like, no, I don't want to go that libertarian, but I'll agree. A person should be able to worship whomever or whatever they want. Yeah, I really don't care. I just strongly agree with this one. Nudism is perfectly natural. I mean, in what context? Like on a beach, yeah. Like in many countries, that's like pretty normal. It's not really that normal in the United States, but it's pretty normal in other countries. Um, I mean, I really don't know what context, like out in the street, like what is this? It gives me no context. I guess I'll just agree because it's like, it is natural in a way because it's like, like 10,000 years ago, or like, well, let's say 15,000 years ago, before we were like in like hunter-gatherer tribes, like a lot of people just didn't wear clothes. I don't know, it seems natural, so I would agree. Animals deserve certain universal rights. I think the right to not be tortured, I think animals deserve that at least. I think, trying to think of other rights, like maybe not kill baby animals. I don't know. Like, I think the not tortured one is a good one. That's the only one I can really think of off the top of my head. So I would strongly agree. Don't torture animals. That's bad. Gender is a social construct, not a natural state of affairs. I mean, at least from my understanding of gender, is that it is more of a social construct, and basically how I know it is sex is biological and gender is social, like society driven. So, at least dictionary definition wise, it does seem to be defined as a social construct. So, I guess I would strongly agree. Laws based on culture values rather than ethical ones aren't justice. I think laws can be based on culture values, not just ethical ones. Because if the culture of the people agree with something, then that would be, you know, what they believe in, as a group. So I disagree with this. Autonomy of body exists even to minors, mentally ill, and serious criminals. I'd strongly disagree with this. Definitely not to minors because we know where that would go. Definitely not to the mental ill because obviously, like I said before, I'm not full libertarian in the sense of like, oh yeah, even if you're mentally ill, you can cut your arm off and blow your brains out. I'm not that libertarian. And serious criminals, no, obviously, because if they were a serious criminal, like, sitting in prison or whatever, they would, probably try to kill themselves if they had the chance. So I strongly disagree with this. Homosexuality is against my values. Strongly disagree. You can, love whoever you want. To me, that just is a basic human right. Strongly disagree. Transgender individuals should not be able to adopt children. Obviously, a conservative would make the argument that, transgenderism is a, mental disorder. But to me, there's a lot of mental disorders out there that, we live in society perfectly fine. Like, for instance, like ADHD and autism. Like, are we going to say, like, any mental disorder you cannot, like, adopt a kid? So, I mean, even to that, I think that it really just is a horrible argument. But yeah, I think that transgender individuals should have the same access to adopting children as, a non-transgender individual. So I would say strongly disagree. Drugs are harmful and should be banned. I think some drugs, yes, some drugs, no. So, like if you talk about weed, I think weed should be legal. But I don't think like meth or heroin should be legal. I'm trying to think if I would go disagree or strongly disagree. I think I'll just go a soft disagree. The death penalty should exist for certain crimes. Strongly agree. I am a fan of rehabilitation, but at the same time, there are a lot of people out there that can't be rehabilitated into society. And, we could keep them in prison, but I think the death penalty itself should be, rehauled over to where we don't spend $1 million killing someone with an injection. We just put a bullet in the back of their head. I mean, some of these people really deserve it, especially like serial child rapists that you can't rehabilitate. Put a bullet in their back of their head. Serial killers that we can't rehabilitate. Put a bullet in the back of their head. I hate to sound so authoritarian there, but it's like, just do it. I mean, those people don't deserve to be in society, and if we can't get them back into society, just end them. One bullet takes 25 cents. So some people just really just we don't need in society, and we just don't even need living. So yeah, I'd agree. Victimless crimes should still be punished. I think I remember a question like this when I remember I was asked a question like this. I think victimless crimes, some of them, like gambling, for instance, I think should be legal. Drug possession, that's another victimless crime. But there are other victimless crimes that probably should be punished, like trespassing. I know that's a victimless crime, but I still think that should be punished. That's if you knowingly trespass, by the way. So, like, if you accidentally trespass, I don't think that should be punished. But if you're knowingly trespassing on someone's land, then I think that that should be punished. So, victimless crimes should still be punished. I'm inclined to agree with this. Soft agree. I think most victimless crimes shouldn't be punished, but there are some that still should. So, soft agree. One cannot be moral without religion. Strongly disagree. I think you can be moral without religion. That's just my belief. Parents should hold absolute power over their children as they are older and more experienced. Strongly agree. We don't know when, a child gets to an age to where they can start, you know, actually making decisions, life decisions for themselves. Usually the period is 18. Once you get to 18, then you can make those decisions. Some kids reach that before 18, some kids don't reach that ever. So that's just the way it goes. There has to be that date. And until that, parents should hold absolute power. Oh, I think I clicked multiculturalism is bad. Oh, shit. I think I double clicked there. Okay, that's fine. Let me just get to my results. And wow. These are my results. It looks like I am completely in the middle of authoritarian and libertarian. And I am left, obviously, negative 5.33. So I'm quite liberal in the middle there. Hold on, let me get out of full screen there. And progressive or conservative, I am a 2.19 on progressive. So I'm slightly more progressive than conservative. I'm obviously a lot more liberal than conservative here on the chart. And I'm exactly in the middle of authoritarian and libertarian, like literally a 0. And that was my test results. So if we're on the 5, let me actually check here. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. So yeah, I am just on the left. So yeah, that was the political compass test. I will link it down in the description if you want to take it as well. I think these questions were pretty good, even though I think I misclicked on the last question there. But I am pretty happy with my results. I did say that I would wind up on the left. I didn't think I would wind up too authoritarian or too libertarian, and it looks like I wound up right in the middle of it. So yeah, these are my results, and if you want to take the test, it will be in the description down below. Hey everyone who is still here on the podcast. The political compass test is obviously over, but I wanted to add this little bit in because I kind of wanted to discuss just one thing, and that's the audio of this podcast. So just recently I invested in an AT 2020 USB Plus, and this obviously is a much more expensive microphone than the one that I have. The current one that I have is a K66-8, which I'm recording off of right now. I got it for like $30, I think, a couple of years ago, and I never really used it, but this is the microphone I use now. But I did invest in an AT 2020 USB Plus, and I was very happy when I actually received it. So I was doing some testing on it, and it was a little quiet, and I thought, oh, well, that's perfectly fine. Googled that, and it turns out a lot of people on Reddit had the exact same problem that I was having on Windows 10. And I found out that it is a Windows 10 driver issue. So, and this article was written over 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago at this point, and basically the problem really comes down to the actual audio driver that Windows 10 uses. And Microsoft has taken no steps to actually fix their USB microphone audio driver problem. So basically, some USB microphones are affected by this and some aren't. Like my A66-8 absolutely isn't. I still get, decent audio, for the microphone, but it's not quiet. It really isn't quiet. It is boosted like to, I think it's maximum 100%, but it puts out good, sounding audio and it's not too quiet. With my AT2020 USB Plus, with the tests I've done, I have it on max settings, everything. I even put a little bit of gain on it in OBS to make it boost a little louder. And even then, it's still very quiet and will cut out a lot of the time. And the problem is I could put more gain on it, but I'm really just defeating the audio purpose at that point because, this is a $30 mic and it sounds better than this boosted all the way up with gain. So I'm trying to work on some workarounds for this. I've kind of done a little bit of research and I've at least found a little bit of hints that this same problem is actually still occurring on Windows 11, which is quite disheartening. And also, it still was a problem on Windows 8. So the operating system, or the latest operating system that isn't even supported anymore, that could actually run the AT2020 USB Plus is actually Windows 7. But the problem is it's not supported anymore, and it's pretty hard to get your hands on an ISO. Regardless, though, I am trying to figure out a workaround, and I think the workaround might have to be recording in Linux. I am pretty proficient in Linux, so I will try to basically dual boot my laptop to be able to run Linux and Windows at the same time. At least that's really the only workaround I can think about at this point, because unless Windows actually fixes this with a better driver, or Windows 11 fixes this, I'll just immediately upgrade to Windows 11 and not have to worry about it. But for now, I think I'm going to try to record in Linux. And the reason I'm really doing this is, I do this show for fun. Like I said, I started it. I didn't start it to make money or get views or any of that. I started it because I like it. I like the podcast. I like doing this show. It's very fun to me. It's fulfilling. It's being a content creator, which I love. But at the same time, I want it to be a good experience. And if it's a podcast, I want it to be better than just recording off a $30 microphone that I got a couple years ago. I'd rather it be with a professional microphone like the AT2020 USB Plus. And it was quite an expensive microphone. I think it was like the whole set, like $165, getting the arm, the mic holder, the actual microphone, which at least a little bit of good news is the $30 microphone, the K66-8, actually screws on to the arm right now. So that's okay. But as for the actual AT2020 USB Plus, I have not got the chance to record with it yet because the audio is just quiet. So I'm going to try to find a workaround. It's most likely going to be through Linux, but I can still do everything I want to do on the podcast with Linux as well. Linux has come a long way. So that's really all I wanted to add, is that, I'm trying to make it a better experience to people who actually listen to this podcast. I don't want to just put up a shit show every single week. I actually want to, put a lot of time into it. I want to make it a better experience for people listening. So this to me is a big upgrade that needs to happen. A better microphone with better audio quality. This $30 microphone is probably going out anyway. But that's really all I had to share at the end of the podcast. Anyways, if you're still here, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed it. But hopefully next week I will have better audio, but I will keep everyone up to date. So yeah, until next time, see ya.